Please welcome to the stage, data passionist Ben Weissman.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to day 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the number of pre-cons you attended. Before anybody asks, unlike Kimberly, I'm not going to retire after this, so you're going to be stuck with me for a while. Either way, this has been a week, and it still feels weird. This is already our last day, right? I mean, so many things happened. We had amazing sessions, keynotes, announcements, right? I mean, dark mode, AI, all. What is happening? And I also hope everybody left feedback for all these sessions you've attended. If not, please do so. But we're not quite done yet. We're going to have the exhibitor raffles today, right after this keynote in the exhibitor hall. And even if this day will at some point come to an end, we're all going to be back at this place right here in about a year, right? Like I said before, time flies. And when they asked me if I could do the intro for today's keynote, they didn't give me a specific assignment. Well, they gave me one. They told me, please, no patterns, no bright colors. I'm great with directions, right? I mean, it's what I do. So I started thinking, what could I talk about this morning? So I started to think a bit back in my personal journey in this community. What some things I've tried over the years, some good, some not so much. It's a learning curve. And then I kept thinking more. For me, all of this started right here. Well, technically 2 blocks down, at the PASS Summit, many, many years ago. And then I kept thinking, what is it that really got me here? And there's not one single answer to it. It's a combination of many things. Some amazing people, many of them are here today. So this is also a great opportunity to say thank you to all of you for being so amazing and making our community so great as it is. Certainly also being at the right time, at the right place. But one thing that got me here above all is something that I got a lot of. Now, many of you may be thinking this. It's not. I mean, I have a lot of those, but it's not what I meant. It's privilege. All of us here in this room are very privileged to be here. The fact that we get to hang out and learn for a week with our closest friends, pretty cool. Things are still easier for some of us than others. So I'd like to mention a couple of the initiatives that I had the honor and joy on working with for this year's event. And maybe I can invite a couple of you to join some of these initiatives and think back how you can get involved and start sharing your privileges with others. I want to start with the DEIB committee for this event. I want to thank everyone on that team that worked so hard in getting so many teeny tiny bits and pieces together, because small things can go a very long way. Special shout out to Gemma and Galia from the Redgate team for always listening to us and for always making happen what we suggest to them. These are a couple of the things that you may or may not have noticed over the course of this week. And they may not affect you, but they may be a great help for others in the room. It's a journey, it's a process. If you have any suggestions on what we can do to make everyone feel more welcome and more included at this event, let us know or join our team. Another initiative I want to mention that makes me so proud and happy is this year's New Stars track. We're running it for the 2nd year in a row, and again, I could not be happier how it turned out. If you haven't attended the first 2 sessions, catch up on the recordings. You still get a chance to see Jared on stage right after the keynote, well, right after the raffle drawing, I should rather say. And for those of you that have not heard about the New Stars track, starting last year, we have started dedicating 3 session slots to people that have not taken the stage at a big event. So we're running a separate call for speakers for that. So those sessions don't compete with the thousands of other submissions that we're getting for this event. Of course, you can still submit to both. The New Stars track is the evolution or the next step for an online event that we've created over the pandemic called New Stars of Data, which has the sole purpose to support and nurture new talent in our speaker pool. So we try to set everyone up for success We provide them with a mentor and all the help they need. Many of our amazing mentors are sitting in the audience here today. And these are all the former new stars presenting here this year. How cool is that? If you want to become a speaker, or for those of you that already are speakers and want to give back by mentoring or moderating, this is your chance right here. We just opened our call for speakers for our next event, running virtual again, mid-May of next year. I already had great conversations yesterday and the day before with people that are interested in that. Come seeing me, all the folks that were on the previous slide, and let us make another great event next May. But I have another thing to share with you. I'm very happy to announce that the New Stars track will be coming back next year in 2025. So for those of you that have just started their speaking career or thinking about it, this might be your chance to speak on this stage in about a year from now. So please bring in those submissions again next year. Like I said, besides all that undeniable privilege that I have, it's a lot of people that brought me where I am today. And of course, this is even a fracture of all the fun moments we've had here in the past couple of years. But it probably also shows life is just good if you're here with friends. So thank you all, on this slide or not, for making this community, and also me, better. Before I wrap up, if you've been here last year with Melody on stage, I was wearing that pink suit, she was wearing that blue dress, and we asked Dali for a picture of us. So this was the prompt we were using. Melody Zacharias, her, Ben Weissman, him, during the past summit keynote. Melody, a blonde woman, wears a blue dress, and Ben, a bald man, is wearing a pink suit. I mean, that is very specific. And for those of you that were here last year, you also know what the results look like. The AI may have been slightly biased towards who gets to wear which color, right? Well, thanks to innovation, that got fixed. Baby steps. Actually, 2 weeks after the event, an attendee sent me a LinkedIn tweet or LinkedIn DM where we're like, look, they fixed it. I used exactly your prompt. This is what it looks like now. So, like I said before, time flies. Stay ahead of the curve, keep innovating, and talking about innovation, I have a feeling that Ginger has some things to say about that. So please join me in welcoming my friend Ginger Grant to present this year's Past Data Platform Community Summit.
Good morning, and thank you very much for showing up today. Got a question for you all. Do you remember what you used to watch media-wise when you were a kid? Yep. Naturally, I watched Gilligan's Island reruns. I mean, you'd expect that, right? But we generally watched cable TV. And if you ask a kid today what they watch, oh, they'll probably tell you, like My Feed, YouTube, and Skibbity Toilet. If you don't know what that is, I appreciate your good taste. For those of you who don't know what it is and you look it up on YouTube, sorry, but it is awful. And I kept this at this aspect ratio because kids aren't watching TV anymore, really. They're watching this on their phones. That's the way most people are consuming media these days. Why does that matter? Well, basically, things are changing. When CNBC did an analysis with some industry experts about cable TV, they asked him what they thought of the industry. And their answer was when they thought cable TV would die. Not if, but when. Just another one of those industries that's going to be gone that we grew up with. Today, everyone is talking about, of course, AI. AI is the reason we're all going to lose our jobs. AI is going to make it so that we only have to work 30-hour weeks. AI is going to, you get the picture. Yes, I do think it's a little bit hyped. But AI is an important tool that we all need to use to help us innovate, help us learn, help us be better at what we do. because we want to stay learning and doing and changing. We want to be like businesses of the future. Let's think of another media company. How about Netflix? Be willing to bet that many of you here, like myself, pay the money every month. But Netflix did not start out as the streaming and entertainment giant that they are today. They were just a little company that had subscriptions, and people mailed people DVDs. Their big competitor in this space was, of course, Blockbuster. Now, the kids today watching Skibbity Toilet have no idea what Blockbuster is. Blockbuster's not around anymore. They didn't innovate. They stayed with their subscription model, and now they're gone. Netflix is here today because they took a chance on doing something wacky and weird with this internet stuff, streaming. And you may be saying to yourself, well, sure, and that's why they're so successful, right? They were the first person to do it. Well, being first does not mean you're going to be successful. For example, has anybody heard of VisiCalc? I know if Buck Woody was here, I'm sure he used it. Also, maybe if you haven't heard of that one, how about Lotus 1-2-3? Lotus 1-2-3 was the spreadsheet in the 90s. If you were using a spreadsheet, you were using Lotus. And then they went off and did this like Lotus Notes thing. I bet you guys remember that too, right? It was going to be like the consumer thing, whatever. But they forgot that product that everybody remembered, that everybody used, that everybody likes. Personally, I hated Lotus Notes. They forgot to innovate the product that brought them where they were. And meanwhile, as you know, there was another company who hadn't forgotten about spreadsheets and was busy trying to go after Lotus's business. They actually had a button in their program that said, if you want to use our application like Lotus 1-2-3, just click on this and we'll make that happen for you. That company innovated. And of course, surprise, surprise, you know who that is? Microsoft Excel. Now, Microsoft Excel is the undisputed leader when it comes to spreadsheets. And they weren't the first. That was VisiCalc. And they weren't the second. That was Lotus 1-2-3. But they innovated. And the third is the winner. So it doesn't matter if you're first. It matters if you continue to innovate and change to make sure that you're still around, unlike VisiCalc and Lotus 1-2-3. But that's not only for people. If you remember, my charming and erudite introduction was done by Ben Wiseman. Give it up for Ben, come on. He's got an ego, he'll love this. Now, as we all know, if you have talked to Ben, Ben was once the world's best VB6 developer. And I know that because he told me. Now, while I'm sure it's still possible in some part of the world to get a job as a VB6 developer, I also have a pretty good degree of certainty that Ben wouldn't own a company in Germany where he flies all around the world, first class only, to be here today and talk to us about all the different things that he has learned. Ben has innovated. And Ben is doing very well for himself, if I do say so myself. What does it take? Well, to start innovation, you're doing the right thing because what are you doing? You're here. So you are looking to improve yourself. You're looking to innovate your skills to ensure that you can do something new, perhaps, and still be gainfully employed in the next 10 years. I think 10 years because that was the first time that I showed up at Past Summit. And I know that I have learned an awful lot since then. And the one thing that has really helped me learn is people. People who can motivate you. People who can show you cool stuff, like I'm sure you've all seen this week. People are the reason that companies innovate or die. So what is innovation anyway? What does it take? Well, according to Harvard Business Review, to be innovative, you need to be curious. You need to be inventive. And you need to be willing to fail a little bit. Because as much as we wish that everything that we did was perfect the first time out, yeah, that doesn't happen. So be willing to take some risks and have a long-term focus. Because if you start learning something today, you will not be as good at it as at that thing you've been working on for the last 10 years. That's just the way life works. But you too can innovate and be successful. Well, think about it. What is the secret to success? What makes some companies fail and some succeed? Why do some people's inventions seem to take off? I think it's back to people. People that you work with. Your network is so important for so many reasons. And I hope that everybody here takes time after you get home. All those people you connected with on LinkedIn, drop them a line. Keep on learning from the people that you have met here and the sessions that you've seen here. We all need to innovate to ensure that we can keep up. When we're in technology, it changes all the time. And people working with each other have the ability to lift all boats, make everyone succeed. You know, and and one of the ways we can do that is also with our work. Does everybody remember back to that time that they had an awful job? Oh, let's face it, we've all had one, right? I remember I had a job that I was not a fan of, and every Sunday I would get these headaches as soon as it got dark because I hated going into work the next day. Now, I certainly didn't plan that. I didn't want to go to a job that I hated. That's kind of like getting married and planning for the divorce. No one does that. But what we all need to do is make sure that we're in a position when things aren't going so good, that we have innovated, that we have learned, that we have made ourselves marketable, not just to whoever we happen to be working with now, but whoever we want to work with in the future. And sometimes that takes time. You need to learn what other people are looking for. That's another key to innovation. Explore your world. Look at what technology is important in the world around you. What are other companies doing? What are other people doing and learning from? And how are things changing? And what do you see going forward? Because all of you are working in technology. You're seeing things, you're learning things. You're watching media, you're talking to people around you. This is how you research what you should do next. What is going to be the next thing? What is important to you? And you know what? Sometimes it really helps to be in a supportive place. And I know that one time I thought I was working for a really innovative company. I got the job on Twitter because the brother of the president of the company, that's where he posted the job. And I thought that was really pretty cool. And I applied, and I got it. And I was so excited. I worked with some really great people who were really, really smart, and I learned a lot. The technology was cool. But I noticed something. A lot of people started leaving. And I wondered why that was. And then when they left, I noticed that the people that replaced them weren't as good. There's not that many good people who are looking for work. And so, being that I'm a curious person and always willing to run my mouth, I went and asked them, so why'd you quit? And they told me. They said they didn't feel valued. where they were working. They would ask for certain job assignments and not get them. They would mention that like dates that were really important to them that they needed time off for, and maybe that didn't happen either. And so they left. Notice I didn't say money in there. Nobody I talked to said that they were so poorly paid they left. They left because they didn't feel valued. And I thought that was interesting, but that wasn't where I was, so I'm like, huh. But they told me. It's going to happen to you too. So I was gotten a job that I was on the schedule for to do training. And for those of you who know me, you might not be surprised that I like training. I actually have a couple classes on LinkedIn. I'm an MCT. I really enjoy events like this. I really like training. And I got pulled off of it. I was kind of bummed because I wanted to do it. So I asked why. Why wasn't I doing the thing that I thought was cool? And they said that the person who was in charge of training didn't think I was very good at it. So I thought about that. And I went and did some other work, and that was fine. But the week before Thanksgiving, I got an opportunity to do training again. But I was going to have to put together a lot of material. And then I was going to have to fly around the month of December, right before Christmas, and get it all done and do some consulting as well. And it was going to be a really big job. But I was kind of excited. I was going to get to do training again. And the way that it was kind of presented to me, I'm thinking, bonus? Promotion? Because it was a lot of work. It was actually so much work that I didn't finish it until I went to Houston. And I had to stay up really late at night because I wasn't done. And then I delivered the training, but then I went home, but when I went home, it was Christmas, so I had to wrap presents, and I had parties to go to and things, and I was just really, really, really busy. And then I went back and did some more training, and then after that, I went on vacation, and then I got pneumonia. I had worked really, really hard the month of December. I didn't take care of myself. I was flying all over the country. And I got really sick. And so when I was at my mom's house, instead of visiting and drinking eggnog, I was lying in bed drinking cough syrup. That's what happened. But I got better and went back to work. And, thought it went well. So I asked my boss, I'm like, hey, why did you ask me to do all that work in December? And he said, well, did you get it done? Well, yes, I did. Well, I guess that means that I picked the right person for the job then. And it felt to me like he was patting himself on the back. And I felt like a chump. I felt like I'd been played. Everybody, generally speaking, for the month of December, the drill. Nobody's really working on projects. We freeze the code dates. Everyone's just kind of like, hanging out, not doing much work, except me. I was working, 120 hours a week trying to get all this stuff done, flying all over the country. No talk of any kind of recognition for extra work. And I thought about what my friends had told me about feeling valued. And I'm like, I got that. So I quit. Found another job, gainfully employed somewhere else. And people at that company asked me why I quit. And I told them. And guess what? They quit. And that company's not around anymore. Kind of like Lotus 1, 2, 3. If you don't focus on what made you good in the first place, You don't value the people around you. And that goes if you're a company or if you're a person. You need to value the interactions that you have with people. And if you don't, hey, you too can be the next Lotus 123. Great place for everybody to be, right? No. But one thing that got me really curious, why do people stay? And why do people leave? And what would be a good place to stay? So I did some research, and I talked to a number of people who have companies with extremely high rates of retention, really low turnover, to find out, what do they do? How do you become successful? And so one thing that I looked at is WebMD, and they did this web retention study. And I really liked it because it resonated with me. It said that 79% of people quit because they feel undervalued. Well, that makes sense, right? Feel undervalued, you leave. The next reason was pay. And while you can generally, if you leave your job and you do not get at least 5% more than the job you left, you're doing it wrong, because something like 90% of the people get at least that. So you always get more money when you change a job. That's generally what happens. So it's not the reason that a lot of people tend to leave, though. And then there's the bad fit, which was exactly what I would tell somebody if I didn't really want to tell them what the real reason was I was leaving. So who knows if that's a thing or not. And then, of course, overwork. Well, sure, if a lot of people are quitting, then you're the one who's left holding the bag. You'll be overworked, and you'll leave too. And the last one is better opportunity. Now, I thought this one was really, really interesting because I was talking with somebody here at PASS about better opportunities. And he was talking about how so many people went to company X, and he thought that company Y was really sad that they lost so many people to them. And I said, well, I know all about why those people left company Y. And I can tell you, the reason they got a better opportunity is because they were looking for one because they weren't happy. And that company happened to have the best opportunities, and they were looking for opportunities, so I don't really think that it was a situation where anybody stole anything. So that wasn't really the scenario. So I still think that the value thing is important. So think about what makes you valuable. We'll get into that in a minute. But one thing is that pay. And I have left for more money, and it didn't make me feel any better. Now don't get me wrong, I like money, but you need to have more in your life with pay, because pay doesn't necessarily, or money doesn't necessarily ensure that the results will improve, that you'll feel better, that things will be better. Throwing money at the problem doesn't really work. I've got a great example of that. How many of you people here have ever heard of the Mississippi Miracle? Okay, really sorry to anybody who happens to be here from Mississippi. But you know there's a horrible stereotype that we all have of that state. It's poor, and you have lousy education. Sorry. But that's grounded in fact. All about the data, right? We're data people. We have to talk about the data. So the data in 2013 was that there is a 4th grade reading assessment test that they give every year. And this test determines how well you can read. And reading and data and literacy, not just data literacy, but literacy in general, is going to help you succeed as a person. So if you don't want to be in a poor state, if everybody knows how to read, the chances are that training can change the world, or at least the world of Mississippi, is not just a wild idea, it's a fact. It can really make people's lives better. Training can do that. Training can literally change your life by introducing you to opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise. So in 2013, the state legislator of Mississippi said, you know what? We're tired of being low education state. And they were, too. On this 4th grade reading assessment, they were ranked number 50. And they felt good about that because they counted Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., which meant there were 2 people after them. Not so good. And they decided that they were going to research what could fix this. And they did. And they determined that there was an educational training program that was shown to be extremely, again, looking at the data, because that's what everybody who's smart does, right? That extremely effective in teaching kids how to read. And so they spent money, and they trained all their teachers on this new methodology and told them they all needed to use it to teach the kids how to read because they wanted them to be successful in life, and they knew that reading was important to that goal. But they didn't spend that much money. The state of Mississippi still only spends, on the ranking of all states, down to 52, 44 is where they rank on how much money they spend on education. Not a ton, even with that additional training that they gave all the teachers so that kids would learn how to read. Well, in 2022, the last year that there is data available, that assessment was done again. Of course, it's done every year. They are now 22. They went from 50 to 22. Not bad. They didn't spend a ton of money, but they got an amazing outcome. And how much better do you think those teachers feel in knowing that they have provided a path for success for all those little kids because they can read? So the state of Mississippi, perhaps in the future, may not be the poorest, one of the poorest states in the U.S. We may be thinking better of them because we invested in training. Training is really important, not just for little kids, but for everybody, which is why we're here. Training can literally change your world, give you new opportunities, just like those kids. Now, thinking back to Netflix, one of the things that they do is they let their employees have a lot of leeway. And it seems like things have always been great for them, right? I mean, I've been paying them for a long time. But that hasn't always been the case. So in the year 2000, things weren't so good. 9/11 happened. There was a really bad recession. People were short on money. So they canceled their subscriptions. And as a result, they had to lay off 30% of the company. That's awful. 30% of the company. And they did what companies always do. They looked to see who wasn't doing so well in terms of the performance reviews, who wasn't doing what they wanted, and they let them go. So they had 30% less people at their organization. And there was one department that kind of stood out because they had a lot less work to do. And I mean, way less than 30%. They didn't hardly have anything to do anymore. Anyone want to guess what department that was? HR. You guessed it. And the reason why, of course, Netflix, also being a data company, did some research. And they determined, why is it that HR has so much less work to do? So they ran the numbers. And they determined that HR spent all of their time on 3% of the people. Problem children. People who, in their words, did not adult well. And they required a lot of interaction with HR. Well, those people are gone. And Netflix realized that they had been handed a giant opportunity because they still had good people. And so they resolved that they had such good people, they didn't want to lose any of them because they could make the company successful. So they asked their employees, because they wanted them to stay, what they hated. Performance reviews. Don't we all hate those things? It's terrible. And they told their managers, all right, people hate that. We're not doing that anymore. Figure out how to give people performance reviews without having to do an annual thing. And they also realized that if you have good people, there's no reason to micromanage. So they kind of reassigned some of those managers too, because they just didn't need to manage people that closely. And they told people that they could do what they wanted as long as it benefited Netflix. And they, you might have seen, this is like not a real new conversation about this. They actually did a documentary on Netflix about Netflix that some of you may have seen. It's pretty good, you should watch it. But they did all that, and they realized that they could be successful. So that means that they gave people opportunities. And the opportunities made people want to stay and do well inside of the organization. Because one of the big important things to provide people is opportunities. And you need to provide an opportunity for yourself if you don't see one at work. Give yourself a goal of something that you want to learn, something that you want to do. I hope many of you become additional speakers and follow up with Ben on new stars of data. Find your opportunities. If nobody's handed them in front of you, go find them. They're out there. There are better opportunities everywhere. There may not be at your employer right now, or maybe there is and you just haven't gone after it yet. We all need to find out and go after opportunities. I know I was at a job and I was bored. Happens, right? And I asked my manager, can I give you a new, is there any new opportunity, something new that I could do? And he said, yes. And they signed me up for this data analytical training course. It was really expensive. I was so excited. They were going to start a new data analytics department, and I was going to be part of it. And I talked to the manager who was going to be doing it. She seemed nice. So I was really excited to be getting this opportunity to learn new things and then apply them at work. And so I studied really hard in class, made sure that I was really good with the material, and I had stuff to do at home so that I could be ready when this opportunity presented itself. So when I went back to work, and I said, when are you going to be transferring me? Because I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore. And he's like, well, you know, it's going to be a little while. They have to set up the department first. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I noticed they hired somebody. And naturally, because I'm a nosy individual, I found out that they transferred that person in from Houston. Like, oh, okay. So I asked our manager, I see that they're starting to add people to the department. Any ideas to when I might get at it? And he said, oh, well, they just hired somebody who was really experienced. Wanted to start with some really experienced people, and then we'll transfer you over. I'm like, great. Happy to do that. And a week went by, and then a month. And I saw they'd hired somebody else. And I found out that person was transferred from another part of the company. So I asked my manager, any idea when you might be transferring me? And he said, oh, you know what? I forgot to ask her. Let me follow up. And a week went by, and another week went by, and then I quit. I wasn't going to work for a company that would treat me like that. Now, one thing that companies really need to do and think about when they are working with employees is Glassdoor. You guys have all heard of a Glassdoor, right? If you haven't, you really should go out there. One of my previous employers, they had the best review I've ever seen on Glassdoor, and this is it. The best thing about working for this company is the food trucks outside, because everything inside is garbage. No joke, I am not kidding. That is 100% true. If you have a good place, if you're looking to work, for work, look there. See what people think of what that employer is like. Because it's important to work with people that you trust and places that you can trust what they say, that they're going to follow up with it. So that when you, if somebody gives you an opportunity, it actually happens. Because trust is a lot like Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Yeah, that's trust. You broke it, it's like a little piece of eggshell everywhere. Ain't going back together. And there's no reason to stay if you've given yourself opportunities so that you can leave. You need to make your own opportunities. And how you can do that in a large part is with training. Learning new skills, especially in our industry. I mean, right now I'm doing things with fabric, which did not exist 4 years ago. How did I do that? Well, I trained myself because I wanted to do it really early. That allows you, training provides you the opportunities that you need to succeed. And if your employer's not going to give them to you, give them to yourself. Because you need to know who's going to catch you when you fall. And everybody around here can help catch you. You have the ability to create your own support group. So that when things aren't going so well, somebody will catch you. And that guy won't move, so she'll hit the ground. You don't want that to happen. I've seen that in a trust fall. That was kind of funny. So when I was talking to managers about what makes people want to stay, another thing that they mentioned was that you need to treat people equally. Now, I was talking to somebody who may or may not be here. He was probably drinking out late last night, so he's not. And he was telling me that before he started his company, he was on a first-class flight. All these people who are taller than me love flying first class, which is pretty much everybody. And in his first-class seat, he was talking to a husband and wife who owned a company. And he found out after talking with them that their employees were in the back. And he swore that if he ever had a company, everyone would fly first class, because the message that he thought it sent, if your employees were in coach and you were in front, that they were way less important than you. And that's not really the case, because he feels that he is successful today because he has such good employees. Employees can make you successful. You can be those employees if they treat you right. And how do you want to stay? What is really important to you? Well, you find out by talking to people. It's the only way you know. I know somebody who is here today that the most important thing to her is lots of time, because she likes to travel. Other people, that may not be the most important thing to them. The most time off may not be what is important. Everybody's different. We all have things that we value. And our employer should find out what's important to us and help us get there. And just speaking from a networking perspective, this is also something that I wish I was better at. I have lots of people that I would love to talk to, and then I get busy, and then I forget to talk to them, and I feel like a jerk. So I send calendar invites to them and say, look, this is lame, but I really do want to talk to you, and I'm just so sorry it hasn't been for 6 months. So just because you've met somebody here at Pass Today and you haven't get a chance to talk to people until like Christmas, because that's the next time you have time, do it anyway. People are always happy that you find them important and that you want to schedule them in your calendar. So it works. Because it's important to have help, have support, and figure out what you're going to do if you decide to quit. And one thing about quitting is for the company. They're probably really sorry that you left for lots of reasons. I bet there's somebody in here who had to pick up an entire huge block of work because they didn't quit and they were the last person standing. Y'all been there? I've been there. Somebody quits and you're like, oh crap, I have to do all their stuff too? Ugh. So it's really important for employers to keep you. And I actually did some research on this. And Simply Benefits, which is an HR magazine, they estimated that it cost 150% of somebody's salary to replace them. And I'm like, that's garbage. There's just no way. And then I thought about it. All right, well, somebody's not working, so somebody else has got to pick that up. They might have to hire a recruiter. They're going to have to put something out on LinkedIn. They're going to have to do interviews, and sitting 5 people around on, even if it's on a conference room or in a Zoom call, you're not paying those people to do any work. And then when you do hire somebody, then it takes them time to figure out what you guys are doing there so that they can be productive. And if you think about it, that's not such a crazy number. So it's important that people feel valued so that nobody has to spend that kind of money. And sometimes people think that they're doing the right thing, and it doesn't turn out. For example, I happen to know, last year here at Pass Summit, there was a company that had a lot of their employees here. So they decided that they would do a nice thing, and they took them out to dinner at a really expensive restaurant. And then they told them that, the food here is pretty expensive. So we're going to do this family style, and we're going to order a couple things so we can all split it. So you know what the people I talked to thought about that? They said, my company doesn't think I'm worth a $50 entree. And I am sure that's not what their manager intended. But that is exactly what they thought of it. So intentions are good, but reality is better. And think about the optics of stuff you do, because people are really valuable. I know that last year, I was at a conference in sunny Orlando, Florida in December. And I met a guy, Chad, who lives in rural North Dakota, which is South Dakota, which is this is what my perception of what rural South Dakota is like. I don't really know, I've never been there, but I'm thinking cold. I hate the cold. There's not a whole lot of people who live in South Dakota, rural South Dakota, and Chad has a good job. And he has worn a lot of hats. He's done a number of different things, including, of course, manage their databases, managing people, and he's a good guy. And his employer knows there's more cows than people, that's a fact, in South Dakota. So he would be really hard to replace. And yes, they do want him on-prem because they even have him worrying about the infrastructure and part of the building. Chad would be really hard to replace, and they know it. Which is why, in the month of December, Chad was in the sunny Orlando, Florida, going to a conference. Because his employer knew that he wanted to go, and his employer wanted to make Chad happy. And I asked him, how does that work? He said, well, whenever I want to do training, as long as I can get a backup, they let me go. So December's not really busy, so I get to do a lot of training in December. I'm like, well, that's awesome. So do you think them give all your training you want works? He's like, well, I've been here for 14 years, not looking to leave. That company is smart. Think about how hard it would be to replace them, and it's way more than the cost of going to a conference. Value your people, and then they'll value you when you do training. Now, this is a training conference, so it's important, of course, that we talk about the elephant in the room, AI. So everybody here, I don't care what you do, needs to become a good prompt engineer. How many people have done any prompt engineering? Come on, raise your hands. Good. Now, after this, everybody will be raising their hands. So prompt engineering is really, really important. So I took a class in Coursera and spent 6 hours learning how to be a prompt engineer. And you know what I learned? It doesn't take 6 hours to become a good prompt engineer. So I can tell you everything you need to know. And as far as which AI tool that you use, we can have a long conversation of which one's the most important. But I will say, hey, Copilot's free, just saying. So let's talk about how to be a good prompt engineer, although this works with any of them, Grok, Llama, Gemini, whatever. You need to be specific in how much text you want in an answer. Let's face it, nobody has time to read a novel. We just want an answer to a question. Ask a question, get an answer. So be very specific about that. And then pick the persona that you want to answer the question. For example, I would like to go to Vienna, Austria in September of 2025. Act as a travel agent and give me 5 things to do in Vienna. And then I told it the persona. I said I only wanted 5 things, and I told it travel. Great. Now, the next thing I could probably do is ask for clarification from the previous question. So give me more information about, I haven't been to Vienna, Austria, so I don't know what about. Good stuff in Vienna. And then, here's the kicker. You all can be really good at AI because you can ask AI how to train you in AI. So every time you ask a question, ask it, how could I have asked this question better? And it'll tell you, oh, you should have asked it like this. Oh. So you can always learn more by doing that. Pretty cool, huh? Now, the last thing to remember is we're talking about generative AI, and it generates responses. It also generates lies. And of course, because it's AI, there's a fancy name for that. Those are called hallucinations, because we wanted to bring crazy people into AI. I don't know why they came up with these things. So one of the things to come up with is basically ask for the links and check them. Now, I was talking to Grant Fritchie, a wonderful Redgate employee who you should all know because he's really nice. And he was telling me that he was asking AI things that he knew the answers to see how good the answers were. And he was asking it something about SQL Server indexing, a topic that he knows a bit about. And he looked at the answer, and he said, that's not right. So we checked the links. And one of the links was from Kendra Little, who all of you should know because she did a wonderful pre-con here at PASS. And he's like, oh, I know Kendra. Kendra would give great advice. Why would she say about this indexing thing? And he was thinking bad thoughts about Kendra. And then he clicked on the link and he immediately thought much better thoughts about Kendra because the link said 404 not found. Not only did it make up a wrong answer, it made up a wrong link. Kendra wouldn't write anything like that. She knows what she's doing. The link was made up. So just because there's a link there doesn't mean anything. It can make those up too. So make sure you do this, and you can all be great prompt engineers. And I can tell you personally that I have found this to be extremely rewarding, teaching people how to become prompt engineers. Specifically my dad. who's in his 80s, and I'm tech support. Go figure. I also do this crazy thing called work for a living, and I don't have time necessarily to answer his texts when he breaks something on his computer. So I showed him how to do this, and he told me after I'd done that, I did an in-private browsing window, and I didn't even have to call you, and I was floored. So, if my dad can do it, y'all can do it. So go out there and do good prompt engineering, because this is a tool that can help you be more successful. I know that I am a lot more productive because I use AI as a tool. And no, I don't use it to write everything for me, because I also know that there is a website called ZeroGPT that I can use to evaluate any text that I get and whether or not it was written by AI or not. Tell your kids that if they think they can cheat on their homework. It's a very good tool for identifying if AI has written any of the text that you see. So this is an important tool that I think that we should all learn. How we can all innovate is to incorporate this. It's very important to use tools, but the other thing to remember is that we're still working with people. And since we're working with people and we want to maintain our network of people, we need to remember a couple of things. 2 rules, basically. Golden rule. We should treat people like we want to be treated. I have a good friend, and he used to change this up a little bit. And he said, you know, when someone does something bad to you, don't be one of them. If you hate how people always wait till the last minute and cut over, make it one less person, because you don't do that. And then, of course, Wheaton's Law, which for those of you who aren't that familiar with internet memes is, well, let's just call it, don't be a jerk. And let's face it, in your tech career, you've got a face for that, don't you? You know somebody who's been a jerk to you. I've got a face in my head that I'm thinking about that, but I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be one of them. Because I know it requires people to be successful. People are the reason even AI is successful. People are the reason that some company, not Microsoft, decided that they could ground their AI data in a real-world data source to get factual information from real live people. And that source was Reddit. Yeah. How'd that work out? Well, when you ask that AI tool, how do I get the pepperoni to stay on the pizza so it doesn't fall off? Because the answers came from Reddit, you get answers like, you need to use glue. Okay. Let's say that I want to figure out what I can do to be more healthy, eat a better diet, what can I do? Eat a rock every day. This is what somebody decided. They decided to use Reddit. And you're like, but it's AI. Yes, but it's bad AI. And they don't do that anymore because they got smacked so much all over the internet by people making fun of their AI tool. People make AI work, or not. And I know that we've all seen software that doesn't work either. Who made that happen or didn't happen? Yep, that was people. And you have to remember that people talk. So if you are not following Wheaton's Law, or perhaps not doing the golden rule, people will find out about it. And hopefully, they'll want to not be around you, because that's a real reward for being a jerk. Nobody wants to be around you. And I hope that we incorporate this in our lives so we all have more friends because we don't treat people badly. Because nobody wants to be in a place where they're treated badly. Let's face it. And that goes for any job that you might have, or even one that you might interview for. So I remember I was interviewing for a job. I was really bored where I was working. I'm sure you guys are really surprised I was looking for work, given the stories I've been telling you. And the interview went really, really well. place was close to my house, and everybody I talked to seemed cool, and the work was good. I was thinking, yeah, this is going to work out. I'm going to probably take this if they give me an offer. And I had one last interview to do, and I was going to talk to the manager that I'm going to be reporting to. But, as luck would have it, a production problem happened, and he had to solve it, so he was busy. So instead of talking to him, I talked to Eric. Who's Eric? So Eric was the guy who I would be taking his position. Eric was going to get promoted, which is why the position was available. And I was kind of surprised. Why didn't they have me talk to Eric in the first place? Because, I would be doing his job. He would be the best person to find out if I was good at the thing he was doing. I figured out why they didn't want me talking to Eric. First, he gave me the worst technical interview that I have ever had, because when he got to questions that I couldn't answer, he started laughing. I knew you wouldn't get that one. Nobody ever gets that one. I'm the only one who knows that answer. Jerk. And then he kept telling me about the job. It was not good. And he went on and on. And I finally asked him, if this job is so terrible, why did you do it? He looked at me like I was an idiot. He's like, well, it's great for the resume. Isn't that why you're interviewing here? And I just sat there going, what do I say to that? And then the manager came in and took me out to lunch. And he was a really great guy. He had great Mexican food. And I wanted to work for him. So when I got the call from the recruiter, I got an offer. And she said, well, you going to take it? I thought about it for a minute. I said, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to work with a place that would hire somebody like Eric. Guy's a jerk. And she's like, you weren't even supposed to talk to Eric. I'm like, well, I did. No. And so then they came back. And they offered me even more money. And at the time, I really could have used it. And I thought about it. And I thought, no way, I'm not working there. I'm not going to work at a place that somebody hates their job that badly. I'd have to be some kind of an idiot, because that would be me. And then I would hate my job and myself. Ain't doing it. People talk. So when you are in a good place, when things are going well for you, you probably feel better. People don't think about this, but everybody knows about the reverse. Know anybody who's gotten ulcers? Migraine headaches? Because their work is so stressful that literally it's making them sick? Ever think about the reverse? If things are going well for you, you're not thinking about, oh God, I don't want to hear one more word out of Mike. Not again. You're thinking about, this is great. I could do this cool thing. I could learn this new thing. I could spend my time doing this, and I really need to talk to this person because they've got cool things going on. And maybe I'm going to write a blog post because I'll actually have time to do it because this thing is really cool. You have headspace because you're not keeping your headspace in a negative place. You can do great things. And of course, innovate. You can spend time on doing what is important to you, thinking about things that make a difference in your life and perhaps perhaps for others. You can think about scenarios that would make you more successful and things that you can do to make your life better. If we think about innovation, we think about tools, training, the people around us. These are all things that can make us innovative. Because really, what is innovation? It's probably just a thought, an idea. But we want to move from that and make it an action. Do something, make it real, push it into reality. Take that new class, subscribe to a great YouTube channel, Spend time visiting with people who do what you want to do so that you can be doing what they're doing and be in a great headspace as well. Because innovation really requires people. People are going to help make you successful, and we can all help others in our innovation journey. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a great week at PASS, and I'm so happy that all of you could attend this week. But wait, there's more. We've got a whole day full of great sessions. So don't dodge early, and make sure to attend as many as you can and fill the rest of your day, especially Deborah's session, which is the very last one this whole day. Kendra's speaking at the end. Kendra's speaking at red. Go to Kendra's session. She's already at the end, and I did talk to her today, talk about her in the past in this keynote, so you should do that. So with that, thank you all very much for attending, and I hope you have a great day.